One of the things I like about our Radio 101 program is this bottom-up approach, in the sense of whenever you hear these stories about anything that relates to youth, even like NPR or anything, it's always an academic or an expert talking about this issue that is affecting young people, and it's sort of like flip the script and then have the people who are in the midst of it just sharing what is it that they're going through and being the ones who are reporting on everything that is happening. So with that, we are going to open the next portion of our discussion today. I have here with me Radio 101's reporters Chloe Patterson, hello, and also Shailene Sebastian. And we also have some experts again to help us understand a little bit more about like the connection between the topic at hand, which is going to be substance use, and like the mental health aspect of it. We have first Dr. Wanda Boone. She's the executive director of Together for Resilient Youth, and Dr. Dawn O'Malley. She's the senior director of clinical services at Cross North Communities for Children. Welcome to all of you. And we are going to be talking about substance use, and that topic might be triggering for some people, but know that there is help available for you. You can always text the crisis line at 741741, and you'll be connected with a crisis counselor as soon as possible. Or you can always call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That is 1-800-273-8255. And these resources are free and they're available 24/7, so please use them. I want to start with our Radio 101 student reporters. Chloe and Shailene, you girls work on a story about substance use, about a girl who had a really rough childhood and she found in drugs and alcohol a way out. And Shailene, I wanted to start with you, and if you could tell us a little bit about how you came up with this story and a little bit of the reporting process. What stuck out to you?
Yeah, we chose to do this story because we saw that, where we lived and at school, and especially on, the internet and social media, that a lot of teenagers were talking about using drugs and drinking alcohol and partying, and they were sort of making it seem like it was like a fun thing to do. Go out, party, drink alcohol, and we sort of wanted to shine a light on like the negative effects of drug and alcohol use.
Let's start by, I want to play an excerpt from your story. You are about to hear M. She's the student that was interviewed for this story. She's going to be describing her use of substances.
It's easier to drink and forget than to deal with your problems. And I'm not going to lie, that's how it was in the beginning. It was great. It felt amazing. It was so nice not to have to deal with that type of stuff. But God, it gets to you fast. Like, after a while, it starts to hit you harder. And then, the addiction type part starts rolling, like, where it's like, it's mid-afternoon, but I need a beer. The more tolerant I got, the more I smoked, the more I drank. So it definitely had an effect on my mental health, because whenever I didn't have those things, I was either like a horrible person to people, or I just never got out of bed. I didn't want to do anything. I wasn't doing well in school.
So in this audio, M is mentioning that it's easier to drink and to have this coping mechanism, I guess, or like this way out than like dealing with her problems. And I wondered, like, Dr. Boone, if we can start with you. How common is this when it comes to like substance use, especially with with teenagers?
Well, unfortunately, it is very common. And the root of this can be found in adverse childhood experiences, which are 10 things that if they happen before your 18th birthday, then you can be more susceptible to using substances. The adolescent brain doesn't develop until someone is 25 years of age. And so sometimes we think that just because a child grows up this way, that they have everything that they need in order to be safe and secure, but that's not the truth.
And Dr. O'Malley, I wonder if you could help us understand a little bit about what are the mental health issues that could arise from a young person using substances as a coping mechanism?
Yeah, there are all kinds of things. Certainly, we know that alcohol and other kinds of substances are really a toxin in our body. So it was mentioned that the adolescent brain is still growing and developing, and so really the last thing you want is some toxins in there getting in the mix and altering the way in which that brain is growing and developing. I think some of the other kind of secondary effects of that are it can certainly have an impact on your relationships, on your ability to participate in activities and experiences that are really important during adolescence. So say, for example, being on a sports team, and perhaps the using interferes with your ability to do that, and you can no longer be on that team, that you're missing out on a lot of what is really important in the growth process at that time.
Dr. O'Malley, I mean, we talk about, substance use, but when does it become an addiction? Like, what is the difference there between, like using substances as a coping mechanism versus I have a problem?
There's a lot of kind of complicated brain chemistry that has to do with that, but our brain in general seeks out things that feel good to us, because in general they're good for our survival, right? So one example would be sweet foods, right? That sweet taste tastes good to us because generally sweet things are safe, as opposed to something that tastes bitter and that that's more associated with something that would be dangerous for us. So our brain continues to seek out, our brain is constantly seeking out things that it likes, and unfortunately some of the elements of the substances can become addictive in the brain, and then our brain wants more and more of those things. It gets sort of messed up with our chemistry and interferes with our ability to feel good with things that are actually good for us.
Interesting. And you do mention at the beginning this idea of like adverse childhood experiences, and I wonder if you could touch on that a little bit, and then like we can discuss that with Dr. O'Malley as well.
Mm-hmm. So adverse childhood experiences refer to 10 things that if they happen before one's 18th birthday, and it can only be 4 or more, then it can cause disruption later on in life. So things like physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, parent treated violently, incarcerated relative, substance use in the home. And so these things, even though the brain forgets, the body remembers. And so it's actually, the trauma is actually stored in the DNA. And later on in life, it can cause severe obesity, substance use, alcoholism, drug use, missed work, alcoholism, I already said that, heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, COPD, and broken bones. Can you imagine? And so, but again, the body holds this trauma and it becomes a problem. But I will say that there are more adverse experiences than just childhood. There's adverse climate experiences that have to do with floods and things that people go through, but also COVID is called a climate experience. Adverse community experiences where a child or anyone may grow up in a community where there are not the same advantages as there are in others. And then there are atrocious cultural experiences that have to do with racism. And actually ACEs now includes discrimination and racism as well. So put all of that together in terms of what young people have to deal with, adults have to deal with, and therefore there has been an increase in substance use and alcoholism.
And Dr. O'Malley, I mean, you work with children, and I'm guessing that some of them they go through some like hard stuff in life. So I wonder if you could share a little bit about your experience with this childhood adverse like experiences.
Yes, absolutely. And that in that study, as Dr. Boone said, was really the first research study to make the connection between adverse experience and physical health, right? Maybe seems obvious to us now, but at the time, it wasn't so much. And one of the things that I think has so much research started to take place after that initial study, and one of the more recent findings, Dr. Burke Harris was part of this research, is that it really doesn't take until adulthood for those health problems to start. And so that's one of the things that we see in the children that I work with, that they have health problems that are much more frequent in adults, starting as young as 4 and 5 years old, having high blood pressure, asthma, diabetes. So it really doesn't necessarily even take a lifetime or an adult, a childhood for those negative experiences to start impacting our well-being.
Dr. Boone, what are some of the red flags that a parent or peers, loved ones may be struggling with substance use issues?
Well, the challenges are challenges that we may not even associate with substances. Lack of communication, sudden changes in behavior, sudden changes in relationships, young people who have different friends that are hanging around that parents may not have seen before, a lack of interest in things that young people were interested in before, because substances actually hijack the brain. And what that means is that even though a person wants to do something that's fun or interesting, what clicks in the brain is, this is not fun to me. Food is not fun to me, relationship isn't fun to me. Doing things that a teenager would ordinarily love to do are not fun to me. I need the drug, I need the alcohol, I need the whatever the addiction is, and it may be addiction to social media.
And in the previous segment, we did talk a little bit about social media and what the kids are seeing out there. And I kind of I wonder, Chloe, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about, you are experts in this because you are in social media all the time, and I wonder what is it exactly that you are seeing out there when it comes to substance use, and what is it that you found again when you were talking to your peers, when you were like reporting on this story? What is out there on social media when it comes to substance use?
Well, when it comes to substance use, I feel like social media has become a huge outlet almost. Because, I mean, if you go on any platform, you're going to see someone underage doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And, I mean, it's just become so normalized. And it's honestly crazy to me a bit. Because, I mean, it's crazy seeing your peers just drinking and getting drunk. And it's just so common. And it's all over social media, and it's almost like they encourage it because you see them doing that and it looks like fun, and then it's everywhere, and so you want to try it.
If that is happening, then that is happening like at home, right? And what is the impact, not only that what we see on social media, but what is happening like at home and what kids are seeing like grown-ups do?
So prevention is extremely important, and one of the things that I always talk about has to do with parents and other adults modeling the behavior that they want to see children or other people in general have. So if at home there's access to alcohol, then that is a inroads into their child using alcohol. Parents may be going through some difficult times as well because of COVID, and their alcohol or substance use may be increased because of that. So they really need as much help as young people do. But if a parent is having challenges with substances or alcohol in particular, then that may be a challenge for the child. They see their parent not being able to cope, they can't cope, and so it's a very difficult situation. So one of the things that we talk about has to do with locking up or monitoring alcohol in the home so that it will not be as accessible to children.
I was wondering why a lot of young people that have substance problems don't seek help.
Yeah, it's in general, as we know, it's just so difficult for folks to seek help about mental health issues in general. I think the extra trick with substance use is that we're kind of afraid we're going to get in trouble, right? You have to be very brave to be able to tell somebody that this is happening in my life, and I think it's getting out of control. And I do think we all worry about what the consequence is going to be. So I think it makes it particularly difficult to do that.
Dr. Boone, if you could talk a little bit about how do we create those safe spaces for people to be able to talk about these issues that they're going through?
I love this question. One of the things that's most important in terms of prevention or recovery, if you will, you can't get rid of ACEs. They're with you. I mentioned 10 things. I will admit that I have 9. And so when I was growing up as a teenager, I remember even suicide attempts and those kinds of things. So we need the space. But the way that we create the space is because usually when teenagers are teenagers, they don't want to talk to adults. They don't want to talk to their parents anymore. And so what we've done is to train young people as health advocates so that they can give the correct information to their peers. And then if there's something that arises out of that that needs more attention, then an adult can become involved.
Dr. Boone, since you work with teenagers who are struggling with substance use, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the way forward, right? Like what happens once you actually engage in like a treatment or just like in therapy or whatever it is that it takes for a teenager to get out of using substances as a coping mechanism.
We're talking about a child and the impact that substance use, we're still talking about a child and a young person. And so we have to be gentle and considerate and non-judgmental when we begin to talk about these things. And that's where the conversation begins. And then helping young people get into treatment by, again, a peer being available. One of the things about ACEs, and it's probably my favorite saying, is that resilience, one of the keys to resilience is having someone that's irrationally crazy about you. And that's what young people need that are addicted to drugs and want to quit. Again, remember, the brain is hijacked. So we can't expect them to just snap out of it. It's a long road that we have to help each other through.
Dr. O'Malley, if if right now a parent is listening to this and they might be worried about their kid using substances, what are some of the things that you would recommend them doing?
Yeah, I think often a great place to start is with your pediatrician, and I say that because they're generally if you have somebody you've been seeing regularly, there's some rapport and relationship there, and you might be surprised that teens often don't want to talk to their parents, but they sometimes, maybe more often, willing to talk to another adult, and particularly one that they've had a longer-term relationship with. So I think that's a place to start. And then generally, a pediatrician can help you to sort out, give you referrals to other mental health people that they trust and have a relationship with. We really want there to be a very good collaboration between physical and mental health providers. So I do think that that's a good place to start. There are also community mental health clinics that folks can access as well.
Well, I do want to thank you, Dr. Boone and Dr. O'Malley, for this conversation. I also want to thank our Radio 101 student reporters, Chloe Patterson and Shalene Sebastian. Thank you so much. And honestly, if anything, I feel like this conversation raised more question than anything, but that's the hallmark to me of a good conversation. It's like for the people out there who are listening right now to be able to go and get those answers, right? To go and have like those difficult conversations with their loved ones. So thank you so much for your time. And to the people right now watching, you can listen to the stories that the student produced. I'm a bit biased, but I'm going to say that they're pretty good. And you can catch them on our website, wfdd.org/dispatches. And from WFDD, Call to Mind, and WETA, thank you for joining us for this Wellbeing Tour event. This is Call to Mind Live, Dispatches from Within, Youth Speak Out. Special program co-produced by WFDD and Call to Mind, American Public Media's initiative to foster new conversations around mental health.